If you want to discover some efficiencies in Paladin, you came to the right place. Welcome everybody, my name is Charles Owen. I will be your host for today, and we're going to be going over some of the hidden gems in Paladin. This is kind of a compilation of different features, if you will, or shortcuts in the system that you can, that not everybody uses on a daily basis. And they should be being used because a lot of these are just things that make a lot of sense. So we're going to go through this just to let you know this is being recorded, so this will be available sometime today up on our website, portal.paladinpos.com/webinars. So the other thing is questions. So you have a question box here. You can add questions and I'll be glad to answer those towards the end. So let's jump into it. So some of the things you're going to learn today, we're going to go over the invoice and quote module. We're going to discuss just a handful of the right-click features, things that you may or may not be aware of. Also, we're going to look at copy and paste long notes, as well as some of the latest additions to the invoice store tab. That is the one that has the biggest influence on your experience at checkout during the invoicing process. Also, we'll be learning one of those features will be adding quote numbers. Beyond that, we'll take into some of the little tips in the PO module, inventory module. Also, we're going to go over the stock check and how we support stock check for multiple stores. So if you own more than one store and you're on a single store version of the Paladin product, we do have multi-store. Multi-store, you can see what's in the other store's inventory. Well, now you can do that in the single store product. So we'll talk about that. Minimum margin protection, get into why that's important. Serialization, clearance management, selling on consignment, and then lastly, some of the hidden reports in Paladin. So on the invoice and quote module, one of my favorite items is Alt-A, or you can right-click on any item in your invoice and select Profit Analyst. Now, Profit Analyst will show you cost, profit, and margin of any item, and it not only shows you on individual items, but it also gives you the aggregate on the bottom line. So it tells you the overall invoice margin, profit, and cost as well. So great little handy feature. It's great for building out quotes, for doing estimates and things of that nature. It really helps you get a handle on it as to what if you're going to be making any money or not. So it's a good negotiation tool. And for those that want to look at it by average cost, can, and those that want to look at it by market cost can as well. You just on the radio button up above, I've circled the average cost and market cost. So do take a look at this feature. It is something that is protected by permissions, so it needs to be activated for people to be able to use that feature. Insert subtotals, another cool little feature. Again, if you're breaking up your invoice into different sections, you can do that just by right-clicking and selecting Insert Subtotal. By the way, any items you insert above the subtotal or take away, it will automatically readjust that subtotal. The next one is, I don't know if you've seen this one, but at any time you can right-click, select Create a Quote, and it will create a quote for any items that you have, items that you have selected in your invoice. Once you select that and you select that Create a PO button, you'll get a little pop-up box that says, hey, one item has been added to the new purchase orders. And of course, if there are more than one items, it would show you the quantity. So that's a neat feature. The next one that I don't know that everybody uses this, but this is a really handy one, especially nowadays with all the price changes and things that are happening with the supply chain. If you create a quotation, and you store it in the system and bring it up, a month later when the customer comes back to the store and says, all right, I got the job, I want to go ahead and move forward with my invoice, then you can recall it. And once you recall that quote, it gives you an opportunity to update all the prices. So if any of the prices will change, you'll see that noted on the You can see on this image here, I've circled $3.99. That is a new price since I created this quote. It used to be $2.99. So if I wanted to update this one price, I would just click on update to current price. However, I could select, or I could say update all to current prices, and then would update across the board from the top to the bottom of the invoice. Updated prices are displayed in blue ink to help identify that a change has been made. And with the click of the mouse, these items can be updated either one at a time or all at once. Copy and paste. This is something that we added, in the distant past sometime, but we had a lot of folks that are building custom windows, custom doors, custom cabinets. They need put a lot of notation and notes and such. If you can grab or access the notes either in another system and you can copy and paste them from that, or copy and paste them from an Excel document, or copy and paste them from a Word document, or from a third-party, window creation system, you can just right-click anywhere on the or left-click and just put your cursor where the part where the you would hit F2 to add a note, and then in that note field you would just do paste, Control V, and that will input all of the information, even though it exceeds the note capacity as it relates to the horizontal. The vertical, you have no limit, so you can have as many lines as you want. This one, I put some Latin text in here. You can see I've got several lines, upwards of 9 or 10, and all of those are right above and under each other on the printed quote or purchase order. So this is something that, and if you wanted, when you're creating this in invoicing, you can highlight everything and right-click and say create a PO, and it will actually move that information from the invoice to a purchase order, including all of the notes. So the invoice, the purchase order, the original bid you got from the company, all of those descriptions could be listed on each of those pieces of information. All right, so another area, we've added a few things recently. I thought I'd mention this, just take an opportunity to show you some of the new features under File Setup Invoice Store tab. So in that, if you go to the bottom of the File Setup Invoice Store tab, and you would just go in the top left-hand of your screen, it says File, select Setup, and then you have this invoice, and then parentheses you have a store. So you click on that, and then there's a ton of items in there to change. Some of the things that we've done as of late, number one is you can enable quote numbers. That's been here for quite some time, but a lot of people don't know that. That just means that when you store a quote, when you create a quote, it's going to go ahead and assign that a quote number. So it's a sequential number starting at quote number 1, and it will continue to grow as you add more and more quotes into the system. So that way, when a customer comes back, instead of saying I'm so-and-so and I'm buying this particular product, they can just say, hey, I got quote 39. I'm ready to execute. And then following that, down below, I have enable oversold warning. So this is something that you can either activate for your entire store. So if you have really good inventory control and you don't necessarily run out of product or have a lot of negative stock on hands, this is a great feature to turn on. It will interrupt the cashier and say, hey, look, you're trying to oversell this. You're trying to sell 5, they only have 3 in stock. Now you can also filter this based on the yard inventory. So if you set up your yard inventory, that can have its own separate section where now you can say, I'm going to look at locations number, 68 through 72 are all my yard order items, and I only want to see an interruption if I'm trying to sell something that's not in the store. Obviously, if it's in the store, they put it on the counter, it's in the cart, they're going to be able to, just scan it. And you don't want to be interrupted when you're scanning products at checkout, even if your inventory is off. So that's a great feature. The next one down is require manager approval for tax checkbox. So on the left-hand side of the invoicing screen, there's a little checkbox for tax. If you take off tax on any of those, it will, if you select this, require a manager's approval. Also, require manager approval when adding and restoring projects. That can be activated as well. And then automatically put items on hold when in order manager. So right now, when you go and create a quote and convert it to an order using order manager, it goes ahead and just stores it as an order, but it doesn't do anything in the inventory. If you check this box, if you store an order, it's also going to show it in the inventory as on hold. So it's going to pull it from the stock on hand, put it in the on hold bucket, and that's what you're going to see using that feature. And then here's one of my favorite ones, assigning a project to an invoice, regardless of the payment type. Right now, that box that comes up that says, put in a memo or a PO number, authorized signer, or a project, that box can come up regardless of how they pay. Now, a lot of contractors like this because whether they pay with cash or check or credit card or put it on account, they might want all of their invoices easily accessible with and applied with a purchase order number and or authorized signer and or a project, and you can do that with that feature. And then the last one, the voided invoices will create a reverse transaction. This changed about 6-8 months ago, where we kind of changed it from the before, where it would actually delete something from the past, and now we made it where there's accountability. So if you don't want accountability and you don't mind that you're altering historical data, you can go back to the old way by unchecking this, but we recommend strongly and highly that you keep this checked because it is a very handy thing. It doesn't change anything in history. It only makes applies it to the date that you are in today. All right, let's continue to PO module. This is a fast one. This is easy. So these are very simple navigation tools that oftentimes people don't know about. I'll talk to people, I'll be on the phone with them, and I'll be logged into their system, and I ask them, I say, hey, you know about these little binoculars up here? And they say, no, what do those do? So, well, how are you finding items in your purchase order? Oh, we're just scrolling through the screen looking for them. Like, no. You want to either do Control F, just like in Microsoft, or you can click on the binoculars. And what happens is it pops up a little box here that says, enter what you want to look for. What do you want me to find? And it can find items via manufacturer number, part number, alternate part number, description 1, description 2. So it finds this stuff on the screen and just brings the selection right to that item. So I typed in conduit, went right to the first item, which was item number 439. Try to find that without using this feature. It would be quite frustrating. All right, next, once you're in there and you say, well, geez, I need to look at this item in the inventory, believe it or not, some people are writing down the number, bringing up the inventory module, typing in the number again. It's like, no. Right here underneath it says recall inventory, F5. You select that, it's going to jump right to the inventory. You can make your changes, and then you just click on PO and it goes right back to the line you're on. Great features. Next, the stock check feature. So with most of our suppliers, we have written to their API, application programming interface, where we can peer into their warehouse to see what's stock on hand is available. Some of these are real time, some are every hour they're updated, some are every 3 hours they're updated, some are even every 24 hours they're updated. But having this information is really, really helpful. Now you'll notice also when you create a purchase order, you have an opportunity to sort these by what's in stock and what's not in stock. And that just is a little checkbox when you're in the PO screen. Check it out. It should be checked by default, so you're probably getting that today. But you can find the stock check under invoice and quote module, the inventory module, and the purchase order module. And this feature has now been made available to multiple stores. So if you have multiple businesses with Paladin and you don't have the multi-store system in play, you just have single store applications at each store, you have the capability to look at the inventory at your other stores in real time. And that is just contact Paladin customer support if you want to activate that. If you got more than one store and you want to see the inventory at any time, whether you're in invoicing, inventory, or the PO module, you can do that. All right, let's look at some of the features in inventory module that I've highlighted here. Well, in this case, just one, because pretty much other than supplier ratio, everything's pretty straightforward in the inventory. But a lot of people don't know that if you're using suggested order report, and even if you're not, this is a good thing to know for in the future when you transition to using suggested orders, because everybody should have that as a goal. Everybody should know that you can really help bring your inventory into a good place, and making sure that your forecasting and your forecasting is accurate, your overstock is avoided, and you want to make sure you have optimal stocking supply. Well, you can do that by running the suggested order report, but you need to start with a good stock on hand. That is a requirement. But when you first run suggested order, if you're not using it today and you run it, you're probably going to have 80 pages, and you're going, what's going on? Why do I don't need a $150,000 order? Well, that's because you might have some products in there that you don't want to show up on your suggested order, and that can easily be done. This can be done in either individually or in batch, because that's another feature. We've added locks, the padlocks, to our importing and exporting. So now you can export the locks, change them, and import them right back in. So now you can affect literally hundreds or thousands of items within minutes versus going in one by one and clicking down the padlock. So that feature does exist as well, and that's in our data viewer. So here I'm just showing you that if you select max quantity, you set it to 0 and lock it down, it will never show up on your suggested order report. It's still an active item, it's still orderable, it's just not going to show up on the suggested order. So this is a really good way to make sure it doesn't. And when you're getting into to leveraging this tool, when you create a PO, you can jump to the inventory item and lock this every time you find an item that you don't want to order, permanently don't want to order it, right? I mean, you can undo this padlock and it'll show up back up, but if you want to just eliminate certain items, you can do that. EDI, when they discontinue an item, they will automatically, through the EDI process, electronic data interchange, what it will do is when you're receiving the invoice and it says, hey, this item's discontinued, it will set the order quantity to 0 and lock it down. So if you see inventory items with the order quantity set at 0 and locked down, more than likely your supplier discontinued this item. In most of the cases under description 2, it'll say, discontinued. So these are the two methods to keep them off of your suggested order report. The next one are core charges. This is the least understood feature in Paladin, I would guess. And you can set your own core charge identifier. It just comes standard, says core charge. But if you want to get more generic about it, you can do that. You can call it, surcharge or government fee, or whatever you want. You can actually change that under File Setup Invoice Store tab. So in there, kind of right in the middle of that, in that page, you're going to see Use Alternate Core Charge Identifier. Now, when you change it and you put your own core charge identifier, it's going to change that on the graphical user interface in the inventory. It's no longer going to say core charge. It's going to say, in this case, government fee. And then so that's going to be the high level, the generic name for core charges. but you can have different types of core charges. So core charges can be set up as classes. So in this case, I have government fee, you can see on the top left-hand corner, as my core charge identifier. And I've added a class of government, GFMT, to a department. And that once that, I'm sorry, oh, this is class. Oh, core charge department. It's actually a class, folks. I made a typo. Anyway, so this is the class screen, and in there you can create these classes, which you can assign to items that have core charges. And then once you do that, you can create a report, and it will segregate out or break out the different classes or core charges that you have in your system and that you've sold. So there is a core charge fee report that you can generate. And my example on the bottom here only has one, but obviously if you had more classes that were tied to and associated with core charge items, they would show up here. So this is a really great way to really identify, is this a paint recycle fee? Is this a iodine or mercury disposal? What kind of things do we have to put in here? Well, this, you can identify not only the generic name on the line item directly below your item, but you can also add an auto text description. In this case, I've got government fee, tells me the government fee for this item, which is item 10001 up on top, and then down below it says paint recycle fee. So this can really spell it out. So a lot of those stores that are selling restricted items or selling items that have core charges, this is a great solution for that. Okay, moving on. Well, this is what an inventory looks like. This is all you have to do in inventory. Once you set up the class, you just assign the class. In this case, it's class ID number 5. And then your description, auto text, put in there, paint recycle fee. Of course, the recycling fee, putting a number here is what makes it a core charge item. And that will start paying attention to that class and itemizing it or breaking it out as a different core charge. And then you notice that it says government fee on the GUI. Well, same with the report. Same with when you generate the report. In the previous screen, there's a report where you can generate. It will also show that particular new identifier, core charge identifier. All right, let's move on to minimum margins. Minimum margins is extremely important. This is something you want to take seriously, because if you don't set your minimum margins, you could be selling stuff at checkout for cost, and you want to be careful. Now, minimum margins is, I'll go to the next page here. There's 2 different ways you can set up minimum margins. You can do an across the board everything. So that's this first one. It's under min margin, under file setup min margin. And in there, you can set up your store to have a overall 28% minimum margin. That means that if I try to discount stuff, it's gonna give me a hard stop and say, oh, nope, time out. You're busting that, barrier here, and you don't want to cross that threshold. And it'll do it. It does a great job at it, and it does it in multiple areas. And I'll go over those in a second here. But the second box here shows that department also has a minimum margin that you can set. So in this case, the minimum margin set across the board is 28. But however, the department margin trumps the one that you've set across the board. So if I put 18, now it's going to allow all of these products in the steel parts department to sell down to 18% margin. So when does this take place? Excuse me. When changing prices at checkout, right? When adding discounts at checkout using the F4 button. When creating Sales and promotions, you have an opportunity to kick in minimum margins. When issuing rewards points, you have an opportunity to kick in minimum margins. And then when issuing prompt payment discounts on the statements, you can also respect minimum margin. All of these things are super good. You know, you definitely want to take this seriously. Let's move on. Serialization is another product, I think, or another feature that's unutilized in the Paladin system. So I thought I'd bring it up. And product serialization is the process of assigning IDs or serial numbers to items, which a lot of hardware stores and other types of stores carry. If you're selling appliances, chainsaws, you know, if you're a Husqvarna or a Steel shop, you know, these are really, it's really important to manage this for several reasons. One, manage the warranty coverage, maintain ownership records, supplier traceability and reporting, service and repair tracking, and then enhanced accountability. So with that, I'm not going to go over all the information about how to set up serial numbers. That there are several documents on that. We have knowledge base articles as well as at least one or more webinars on the topic. But as of late, we've added the capability to scan serialized items when you're receiving products on non-EDI invoices. All right, so if you have the RF gun set to receive PO non-EDI, this is where you're just taking the gun and you're receiving the products in. It gives you an opportunity on the 15-line display. It gives you an opportunity to scan in or enter the serial number right within the RF gun. So this is very helpful, because otherwise, you know, you have to go back to the inventory system and add the serialized numbers later, which is not a problem. You can do that as well. If you want to learn more about this, there is a KBA on the 15-line functionality. If you don't have the 15-line functionality on your RF gun, contact Paladin. There's an abundance of other features that we've added using the larger display, so you want to participate with that. Moving on to clearance management. So what is clearance? That's like item change management. It's like, how do I move my inventory from non-producers to producers, right? So in Paladin, on the top ribbon, you can select inventory module. You're going to see the Paladin Insight dashboard. On any of those magnifying glasses under these dashboards will take you to the Paladin Insight dashboards and tabs. And what we've done is we've added a 5th tab. So you've got the product outs, items that have been reviewed or haven't been reviewed, your shrinkage losses, and your your overstock. And then we've added this clearance tab. So if you go into that clearance tab, it's going to then give you an opportunity to change on the very top left-hand side. You see order by, display by. I like to set it by department and number of items. And then you can see that these names are department names. So if it defaults to location and number of items, but I think department is better for this particular report. When you click on the magnifying glass on the left-hand side that I've highlighted here, it will bring up all of the items in that department. And then you can sort by any one of these headers on top. You can sort by last sold date, unit cost, retail price, stock on hand, department. But these are all items that, based on my criteria up above, you can say here, no sales for 365 days. So you have up to 2 years you can set no sales for to appear on this list. Hey, if you put 700 days in here and you've got 20 items here, that means you haven't sold those items in an awful long time, and you might want to consider setting those to clearance. So all you have to do here is click the box on the left-hand side, And once you say, you know, hit clearance on the bottom right, it will send those items to a sale list, produce a sale bin tag with the original price and the sale price, and then you can just gather up these products and put them on the clearance rack or the clearance table. And that's how difficult that is, which is just very, very simple. It is not difficult at all. Okay. Also down below on the bottom right hand side, there's an opportunity to print an Excel report. So that'll give you all the items that that are on your list, and you can then take this report, print it out if you like, and you know, try to figure out which of these items am I really going to get rid of, and which ones am I going to keep. The clearance function is also available. It's one of the other on the 15-line display option for the RF gun. It will automatically trigger if an item hasn't moved within a certain number of days. You set it's normally defaults to 365 days, but if it hasn't turned in that long and you've got 3 on the shelf, it gives you this clearance line. You can just go ahead and accept this clearance, and now it'll add that item to the clearance sale as well. And that's when you're in the 2 modes of override stock on hand or append to stock on hand. There are multiple documents on the clearance feature. There's KBA, there's video and webinar on the topic as well. Take a look at that. The next one that's underutilized is the consignment. Now, consignment is a process versus an actual, you know, feature. All the features are built. The core of the product already has everything to make consignment really slick. So what is consignment? You know what it is. It's where you take somebody's product and you sell it for them. They don't charge you anything, but you charge them a fee for selling it. So we can help you manage the consignments, manage the suppliers and or customers, and give you reporting and tracking that's going to tell them exactly what commission percentage that you get. So all of that's done under consignment. There's a KBA article, knowledge base article on it. This is an excerpt from that article. You know, you go into file setup department, you set up a department called consignment, and you're, you know, that's the beginning of getting consignment set up. Now you just add your consignment items, you add the price. Now it's really important, since you're getting these at 0 cost, but you are making some money, like if you're getting 50%, you need to put a reference margin in of 50 for 50%. If you only take 10%, of course, it would be 10%. So whatever your commission is for selling this for the seller, you'll want to put that in here in a reference margin, and keep your average and market cost at 0. And then it doesn't matter what you end up selling it for, you're always going to get 50 or 40 or 10% of what that item sold for. It's kind of a cool little feature. Also, you can search by either department and look for your consignment department to see all items that are under consignment. And then, of course, all the reports that you can produce as well are pretty cool. So when you sell an item, you're just going through the standard checkout screen. And then to manage this from a report perspective, you've got a number of different reports you can produce. Comparative revenue report is going to give you the commission. Transaction report is going to give you the detail. Inventory count list can separate all these out and categorize them for you. I mean, there's just a number of different things that you can do with that. All right, last subject matter, and it's been going, we've been at this for about 34 minutes, so I'll make it quick. Little known reports in Paladin. There is a knowledge base and a webinar on this topic, at least a webinar. But one of those is, I found another mistake, guys. This is great. But as long as you're paying attention, we're good. The customer name needs to be tax exempt. And it's just, I made it right down here. So tax exempt in the quotations down below. You put that as a customer name, and it's only going to give you a report for items that have been sold without tax. Whether it's a single line item or it's everything on the invoice, it will produce a transaction report with items that have been given for without taxes. All right, so that is that. The next one is all items report. So this is a suggested order report, but I call it the non-suggested order report because it completely ignores the needs analysis. So all it's doing is it's giving you that really kind of nice format on the PDF page that has, I call it the kitchen sink report because everything's on it. It shows the historical sales, it shows the cost, the sale price, it just shows everything about this. And it's also the report that you use to do a spot check on when you run suggested ordering. But in this case, if you put in part number, all items, and then ending part number, all items, without any spaces, and you will definitely select one of the other constricting criteria, because if you don't, you're going to get an all items report for potentially 30,000 items in your inventory. So narrow it down to a supplier, to a class, to a location. Definitely narrow it down because you don't want to get too much information. But this will give you a suggested order report regardless of whether something needs to be ordered or not. Again, it's ignoring all the needs analysis. All right. The last report, I believe, is, or second to last report, is the restricted items transaction report. This is used in pharmacies or stores that sell products that could be used to make meth and or restricted items. If you generate a transaction report and you go into customer name and type the word mask, this will produce transaction reports, output, itemized of all items that were either restricted items or stop meth items. And this next report is the item sold report. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can use the item sold report as a replenishment ordering, meaning if you want to start with a PO, why not start with, hey, what did I sell over the last week? I at least want to replenish what I sold, right? It's a good baseline, and there's a lot of stores that actually do ordering this way. Hey, I just want to replace what was sold last week. You can do that. You do that by just going into the history report under inventory, and when you generate this historical report, it can be either viewed in Excel or in PDF. But if you select that little circle I have here, it says create working purchase order from this data. Now it's not only giving you a report, it's also going to give you a purchase order. And that purchase order can be your baseline for your order that you're ordering, today, tomorrow, this week. All right, so now we're getting down to the last one. Now these are other reports. I just put these in here because I like these reports and they're, again, probably underutilized. One is the hourly analysis report. So this is something that tells you when your store is busy. So you give it a date range, and then it shows all the 24-hour clock, and then it shows the number of transactions, the total amount, and the total customer count. It just shows you a bunch of stuff for that period of time. And you can see where your heavy times are. Where's your biggest demand? When do I need to have the staff, fully staffed at this between 9 a.m. and 11:35, and then you can help with setting up your resources. Inventory count list is another report. It's one of my favorites. You can do a lot of things with this report. It goes right to Excel, and you can sort it by margins, by the low margin to high margin, and within seconds you can see that you have negative margins. Not a good thing to have negative margins unless you're actually selling products for less than what you paid for them, which in some cases, loss leaders, you might want to do that with other products that you just want to eliminate at your store and you don't have time to bring them to Habitat for Humanity. Also, retail pricing by category is just another sample of a sortation that you can do. and then the top 10 movers, top 20 movers, top 100 movers. You just sort by what's moved in the last 6 weeks or year to date. Year to date, in this case, is today looking over our shoulder 365 days, like it is in most of our reports. And then you can also use it to do cycle counting assignments. So you can sort it by location, print it out, give it to people and say, hey, these are the products that need to be counted, and they just fill it in. Then you can, that's the old fashioned way. Then you can go back and make the change in Paladin, or you can take the RF gun with you and do it live and in person. All right, we are down to the end, folks. Thank you for your attention. I'll wrap it up real quick. There's some resources that you can use in the help portal. To get there, you can just do portal.paladinpos.com. And if you want to get directly to webinars, you go /webinars. But if you just want to get to the knowledge-based articles, just select the portal. It'll take you right there. And then you'll find these are the search phrases that you can use to go to these knowledge-based articles and webinars. The next webinar, this is groundbreaking stuff, guys. You want to be on this webinar. Paladin Shop is something that we are introducing to the market. It's running in stores today. It will enable you to have, get this, your customers will have their own portal to go to view invoices and statements and even pay statements online. In addition to that, every item or whatever items you choose in the Paladin inventory can be sent overnight to a digital web store, which you manage 100% in Paladin. You never ever touch the website. This is pretty amazing stuff. So you don't want to miss this one. Keep your eyes peeled for this feature coming out. Everybody will have access to this, and it doesn't cost anything extra. It's amazing. It's included with our product. So that's March 18th, Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time today. It's a lot to cover. I hope you got at least 1 or 2 tidbits of information from this, 42 minutes that we've been on the phone here on this webinar. But again, thank you so much for attending. I don't see any questions. Let me just check it one more time. No, it looks like it's pretty straightforward. So I'll let y'all go. Hey, listen, be safe, God bless, and until next time.